Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The All In Show. We're about to go all in today. I have a very special guest who has been making a lot of moves within the Pueblo community for years. Real estate agent for over 50 years.
Well, 49. Don't
49.
don't push it too fast.
I'm going to round up to
Okay,
50.
all right.
How about that?
I can take the roundup.
All right. A member of City Council for 6 years?
8 years.
8 years. What is the word? A candidate for mayor, and he has a lot of experience and knowledge about entrepreneurship. So today we're going to be discussing life experience, entrepreneurship, and we're going to get into it. Randy, how are you doing?
You know, life is full of twists and turns, but I love the journey.
Me too. What's been a twist and turn this week?
You know, I was up at 6 o'clock this morning. I found a new place to really get some good physical therapies. And it's the Villa Sports up there in North Colorado Springs. So they have the cryotherapy, they've got the red light sauna, and they've got the hydrotherapy. So I was first thing this morning at 165 degrees below zero in a container that for 3 minutes. And then I went into the red sauna going up to 165 degrees to the positive for 20 minutes. And then the hydrotherapy for 45 minutes, which is the saltwater float where you're floating without touching anything for 45 minutes. So it puts your body in a very unique stressed state that really strengthens your cells. It makes your cells more resilient. You know, when you can stress your body, you can stress your mind, you can stress things in your life, it makes you a stronger person. So that was from just this morning here.
And you mentioned before this was early. What time was it?
I was there at the facility at 6, so I left at 5.
Wow.
But 5 o'clock is most sane people are still sleeping.
They are. And how did that make you feel afterwards?
Oh, great. I feel like $1 million. Everything in my whole body is active, is feeling good, is energized. I'm big on frequencies. I'm big on proactive health stuff. And if you start your day off that way, it's amazing what you can accomplish in one day.
I think it's a good way to get your mind right first thing in the morning.
Your focus should always be being in the right state of mind. Because if you wake up and you had a bad day the day before and you carry that forward, you're going to have 2 bad days.
That's a good point. Let's go into that a little bit, because as an entrepreneur, there's a whole stigma behind it. Some people say you should wake up early in the morning. Some people are a little more relaxed. But moral of the story is you should wake up, you should get your mind right, and that'll help you attack all the other challenges. The first 30 minutes, even 10 minutes of your day, you should get up, you should do something that activates your mind essentially, but gets you ready for the day. Some people may do yoga, some people may do a cold plunge, but how does that affect, and this goes for everybody, but I'm going to spin it off to an entrepreneur. How does that affect their day throughout the day?
Well, let me kind of get back into where I spent most of my working life. I worked at the mill when I turned 18, and I was one of the youngest people out at the mill. Obviously, it was actually the day after my 18th birthday. Never went to college, and my dad worked at the mill, and a lot of us in Pueblo, that's what we do. You know, the money was good, and back then they actually made steel. I mean, that's how long ago it was that I worked there. And there was something that was calling at me, and it was like I was making great money. I was making $2,800 a month with full benefits as an 18-year-old. I bought my first house when I was 18. I bought my first rental when I was 20. And because the mill afforded that kind of situation. But there was just something screaming at me that says, you got to do more with your life. You know, you want to be challenged. You don't want to it can't be about just making money. So I ended up quitting to my dad's disappointment when I was 21. Well, actually, before I was 21, and went to get my real estate license. And what you don't realize about real estate, it is an entrepreneur. But every day in real estate, you wake up unemployed. And that's something people just don't think about. You know, the job I had before, you know, I worked whatever hours, got the check week after week, and, you know, it just was all predictable. To switch into real estate, and by then I had two kids, again, my house, my rental, my wife. I had a lot of responsibility, and I went from that guaranteed good money into waking up every day unemployed. And if that doesn't sharpen your skills, if that doesn't put you in a situation that you better be on your on game every day, and it's a different energy, a different way of looking at it. And I've been in that state now for 49 years of every day waking up unemployed, and I love it. But again, you have to wrap your hands around that every minute of every day is important, and how you view life and how you feel about it, what your frequency levels are, what your energy levels are, where it is that you're dealing with disappointment, with challenges, with things that should have gone a certain way that didn't go that way. You can't let those things roll over into your present moment. If not, you're really cheating yourself out of the opportunity of being able to move forward and grow from whatever the situation was.
You pointed out a few great gems in that. As an entrepreneur, you're waking up uncertain.
Uncertain.
And the only way to combat that, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of other entrepreneurs' opinion, is how you view life and how you tackle those challenges. It can make or break you, but I think if you don't let it break you, it can help you grow. So what I got from that is keep a positive outlook and keep sight of the goal, the vision. Keep pursuing it. So that's a great point.
Well, and I think the mindset goes even beyond that, that you can't have expectations. Because if you have expectations and they go unfulfilled, then it puts you into a negative state. But if you live in possibilities, so you wake up every day with the possibilities and then you take action on those and you put your best foot forward and you do it for the right reason. So one thing I learned early with real estate, I didn't sell real estate to make money. I sold real estate to add value. So when you add value in people's life, the money automatically comes. But if you're sitting there and you're looking at it about money, you're in the wrong business for the wrong reason. It's got to be like a young family or an older person or whatever it is, that they come to you to add value. They don't come there to make sure that you get paid. And if you take that so serious and so responsible, it makes a huge difference. And some worked out, some didn't work out. The things that didn't work out, I always had a relationship with a mirror. And I asked myself every day, what did I do right? What did I do that I should have done better? What did I learn out of that experience? And asking those kinds of questions, creating an awareness of then tweaking and not blaming. Because it's easy to blame, you know, like, hey man, I'm the greatest. Wasn't my fault. This happened. Well, you missed the opportunity of growth. In fact, I took that so serious that when somebody would blame me, I would love it. Blame me because I get to learn your lesson. You know, what it is that you should be learning and growing by taking responsibility. I get a chance now to live through that experience and say what should have happened differently.
So you hold extreme ownership to a higher standard.
You have to if you really want to live a quality life of uncertainty with unlimited possibilities. Without it, you don't get it.
Randy, you're speaking my language here. This is something I think about constantly. As a young man, doing what I'm doing, life's uncertain. but I will never know unless I don't take that risk. I don't bet on myself, but most importantly, I don't believe in myself. If all those three things were, if even one was out of the equation, you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think you gotta, I mean, there's more, but those are the three things that come to mind when you're pursuing a dream, a vision, a goal, whatever it may be. But in entrepreneurship, these three things, they better be at the top of your list right there when it comes to pursuing this.
Well, but pursue the possibilities with intention, not the expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have expectations, you will always, even if you got 90% of what you expected, you're still going to feel like a failure because you didn't get 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You live in possibilities with intention, so you need the intention to get you on the right path. But then the possibilities allow you to tweak and adjust on that journey
Mm-hmm.
that create that there is no disappointment.
I
And
see
if
what you're
there's
saying.
something that you don't achieve, then you have your conversation in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day you're fired. I'm not fired. You're fired up. You're just like I can handle. I can do anything.
Mm-hmm. So are you a Pueblo native?
I am. I was born and raised here. Born in St. Mary Corwin Hospital
Okay.
in 1957, March 9th. I created friendships and relationships as a Puebloan growing up. Went to Columbian School, then to Sunset Park, and then Pitts, and then South. And just lived a life of a kid. My dad worked at the mill. My mom stayed home as a housewife. Had two brothers and a sister, and it was just a normal family.
How was your relationship with your parents growing up?
You know, like a lot of us, we get stories in our head. You know, our parents, for most people, your parents are the person that you should trust and listen to the most because they really, for the most part, have your back. When you start hanging out with friends and stuff and they want to get you going down a different path, that's to be accepted in your circle, but it's not the same as your parents. But my parents were hard on me, and I took it that I was looking for them to be proud of me, especially my dad. And that was a driving force to always be proving to get accepted. And I learned a lot of lessons in life with that. And that having, where you're trying to please somebody else, you're missing the opportunity of the growth of what you're destined to be and you should have your focus on to make somebody else happy with you there. And that happens with parents and siblings and friends and everything. Are you living up for their expectations? Or are you creating the principles and the focuses in life that create what will serve you in the journey of life?
As you got into real estate and started seeing some more success with it, did you ever get the kudos you were looking for from your dad?
Yes and no, but it was more no than yes, because expectations that he would see my heart and soul of how much I put into something. And for my dad, you know, being a dad, that's just expected for you to always be your best. But there was just a disconnect in my expectations because I had expectations back then instead of the possibilities. Everything that I've learned through life has changed as the journeys move forward. And so I'm going to give you kind of another example of that, and that is we talked about the uncertainty. Uncertainty, most people can't live in uncertainty. They want predictability. They want comfort. They want to know tomorrow this is what's going to happen, and they don't want to take risks. They want to play it safe. They don't want to do something that might be viewed as a failure. They're worried about what other people might think about them, and all of those interesting things work against you. So one thing I came up with, not say early on, because this was probably 20 years ago, is comfort. We all want comfort. But that ends up being the worst disease you can ever have is the disease of comfort. because it keeps you from growing. It keeps you from keeping your mind sharp. It keeps you from taking risk and knowing that no matter what, you're either going to get the lesson or you're going to get the result. Sometimes you get lucky and you get both. But that's a hard mindset to really have. And part of that came from watching a TV show called The Twilight Zone. And now you guys are young. You don't realize that back in my age when I watched The Twilight Zone, it was a new show. You know, the actors, William Shatner and all of the people that you see now on the reruns, that was their show. But Rod Serling was a brilliant man. And he understood human dynamics. And he understood how to make it interesting in a story, but every one of his shows had a life lesson in it. If you were looking at learning life lessons, or you can just be entertained and think, wow, that was cool. So the one that really had major impact on me was the one with the gangster that was robbing a jewelry store. And he comes out and the cops are there and all this stuff's going on and slap, boom, they shoot him and he's on the ground. And now the next shot, they have this guy in a white jacket, big guy standing over, I'm going to call him Mr. G, the gangster. And Mr. G opens his eyes and he says, hey, I'm here to give you whatever you want. And Mr. G, being a con man, a crook, he took his gun and he popped this guy and nothing happened. So he thinks, man, this is pretty cool. Maybe there's something to this. So he says, I want a mansion. So snap, there's a big mansion on the hill. They're walking up the steps and it's got Mr. G's name over it. They walk in and he says, I want money. So snap, there's all of this money falling out of a safe and there's people cooking and there's women walking around. I mean, it's just anything that he wanted. It was just pop, 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 pop. So they go to the next phase of the show and he's gambling with his friends. And every time he pulls down the handle, he hits a jackpot. Every time he rolls the dice, he hits it with a win. And everybody's going crazy and high-fiving and doing all of this. And, you know, life seems to be pretty cool. Then the third stage was he's playing pool with the guy and hits the rack and all 15 balls drop in. And all of a sudden, Mr. G is, I can't take this anymore. There's no more challenge to life. This is hell. And the guy looked at him. He says, well, where did you think you were? And if you really think about that, we all want to have that genie that we rub the bottle and we get all the wishes. But to me, the lesson in that is that really what you want? To be able to have anything and not have any challenge in life would be truly the worst hell that you could ever live in. So we're all looking for that if we had it, we'd be the most miserable people in the world. So what's the alternative? Is the uncertainty, is the challenge, is how can I grow? How can I be part of something that is always putting some stress on my system? Not the negative, bad stress, but the stress that keeps me sharp and growing and asking questions. What needs to be looked at today differently than I looked at yesterday, and what value will that bring versus being comfortable and just sitting there every day dwindling instead of growing.
I heard this on social media the other day, and millionaires aren't millionaires because they're smart at what they do. It's because they ask a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
And I think that's spot on. You're not going to know unless you ask a lot of questions.
And take responsibility. Take responsibility, ask the questions. So I'm going to digress just a little bit in our existing paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say our paradigm that we're living in today with all of the chaos and everything that's going on and the confusion and the division and the battling and the fighting, do you think it's healthy or do you think that our paradigm is broken?
I personally think that's a two-sided question because I think a part of the system, I'm going to put a percentage. I would say if we're looking from the outside in, the system is broken. But if you look at individuals and where their morals and ethics align, the system still has faith. So I think that's, a two-sided argument. But from the outside looking in, yeah, it's broken.
Okay. And if there was one word that would fuel the brokenness, the confusion, and the division, what would that word be?
It jumped to my head as soon as you started your first few words, and I think that's community.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a little bit different situation take on it. The noise. We live in a world that, what percentage of noise do you think we all are exposed to every day? And noise is just noise with no awareness, just surrounding us that we react to, that we're not really able to get a grip on our life and where we're going.
I would say most of the world focuses on the noise, and that can be in different aspects.
Yeah. It could be physical, mental. Noise is noise. And people don't even realize it, but guess how you realize what noise is through asking questions. And when you ask questions, you're in a different level of being, and that's called awareness. Noise and awareness are opposites. So as you increase your awareness, the noise, well, one of the awarenesses is that noise is not your friend. But how much time do we participate and exist in noise? I mean, we're surrounded with it. We're drowning in it. And hidden agendas exist. Big pharma exists in the noise, the stuff you see on TV. Everything around us, your conversations with friends, and they're talking about all of this stuff. And there's no awareness, but just noise. And that keeps people from really breaking out, except if you have the awareness through questions. So I just really want to make that a strong point, that once I realized awareness was one of the greatest gifts in the world. To give you a good analogy of that, do you ski?
No.
Okay. So if you were in the mountains and you were in the backcountry on skis and an avalanche came down and you were swept up in an avalanche and you were buried in the snow, what's the first thing that you would do?
Try to climb myself out of the snow.
Right. Okay. 90% of the people would do that. Do you realize statistically 80% of the people that die in avalanches were trying to dig out? But guess where they were digging?
Underneath.
Yeah, because there was no basis. So I'm going to give you an awareness that you will never forget. And anybody that's watching this show will never forget this in noise versus awareness. The awareness is you spit. Spit. So when you spit will go down. Gravity. So now you know to dig up. So is that noise, or is that something that creates a little bit of knowledge that increases your capacity? So guess how many of those little bits of awarenesses exist in the world? Is hundreds of thousands, if not millions, that make your life better, that give you something that now can be helpful, that if you didn't have, it would be a disaster. And now you start having a question is, how many new awarenesses can I generate every day? So now you start asking questions, because you get awareness through asking powerful questions. And they're not easy questions. You can say, what's the weather going to be like today? Big deal, right? Who cares? Because if you have the right awareness, whatever the weather is has value. But the awareness is something that now you have 20 things, 30 things, new awarenesses that change the direction of your state of mind, the choices that you make, the value that you add. Just like I said about real estate, you don't go after the money. The money will follow if you're adding value. Any business can have that same concept. But a lot of people, they want to make the money. They want to be known. They want to drive the big fancy cars and have the big houses, and that's their goal. And they're not taking care of the basic of adding value to people that are counting on them taking care of them.
Okay. being in real estate, I heard you say one time in the radio show or the podcast that you're helping bring, was it a quick stop or a gas station or maybe even a restaurant?
Well, it was Murphy's, probably Murphy's,
Yes.
and they're here. It's where the Village Inn was on the boulevard.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's your niche? Is it commercial? Is it residential? Where do you find the most value, and why?
Well, I find a value where I can add value, and I turn down a lot of real estate because I can't add value, or the person that is wanting me to help them have their own agenda that I can't add value to. This has to be something that my expertise can make a difference. So the situation with Murphy's gas station, the Village Inn went for sale, and it was in a good location. And within 30 days, I think it was 1.2 or 1.3 million. I had it under contract with the company that was contracting with Murphy's gas station. And it ended up taking us almost 2 years to get the deal done because of the bureaucratic red tape and all of the things that exist out in the world that has not made Pueblo business friendly. If Pueblo was business friendly, if we had in the bureaucratic side of things a different attitude, how can we partner with businesses coming in to create jobs instead of throwing up brick walls and stop gates that make it difficult for people to do business in Pueblo? So long story short, we got through it with CDOT, with the access permit, because it comes onto the Pueblo Boulevard, Glen Royal, and we thought we were done because that was the big mountain in our way. And then we moved forward, and they put up $60,000 non-refundable earnest money and spent a couple $100,000 on engineering and architect to get it all set. And I get a call from the attorney representing the Murphys, and said they're terminating the contract. And it was like, how could that be? I mean, we got through all of this stuff, and they had just received a letter from a city employee saying that they were going to require us to have both entrances coming into where it was the Village Inn both shut off, and that they had to go into the gym behind it coming in through an easement. Well, these guys have 18-wheeler gas trucks, and there's no way they could make the turn. But it was a requirement through government, through the bureaucratic part of it that stopped it. And so we had a pretty serious meeting of the powers to be, and it was pretty intense, and they were going to hold to it that, no, we're not going to bend. And long story short, I thanked the person that was being difficult when he said that they're not going to back off, and I just said, thank you. Thank you. You have no idea how much I appreciate you showing me who you are. That you would stop this kind of growth in the community because of something that you're going to insist take place. Because with Murphy's, I don't know if you guys realize, our gas prices were a lot higher before they came into town. Now we have a lot of gas stations, and we pretty much have daily gas wars of keeping the gas prices lower compared to what it was before. And instead, you would have had another empty building on the boulevard, all graffitied up and looking terrible, not for any other reason but the bureaucratic way of thinking that was not in alignment with what makes Pueblo grow and how can it be a better community. So after I thanked him for doing that, I also said, now that I know who you are, I said, everybody will know who you are. And it went quiet, and it seemed like it took forever. All the eyes was on him, and he finally said, okay, I'll sign off. So he signed off, and that's why you have a Murphy's gas station.
Interesting. You said something that jumped out at me that I am curious about in your own opinion, since you've been within local government.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll get back into real estate. But my question is, all these closed down businesses, all these boarded up buildings that are not operational, nothing's being done with them, and it's consistently happening within the community.
Right.
Who is accountable for this? You know, I've been seeing a lot on social media that it's the sheriff's job to regulate this or to control the growth within the community. But for someone who has been involved in local government, and you kind of know a thing or two about a thing or two, who is actually responsible for making sure that we can use these buildings for growth in the community?
Well, I'm gonna give you a backdoor to your answer and build it forward. So the first thing is you have to understand government, which I didn't understand. When I was asked to run for city council, I never had any thoughts of ever being in politics. None, zero. And it was the current councilman for my district. His name was Rich Galenda. He came into my business when I had Goldcrest Realty and Management there on Main Street, and he didn't have an appointment. He just came in and he had two big black books, and he put them on my desk and he said, "Randy, I'm not going to run for re-election." He says, "I know that you love Pueblo, and I know you've got business knowledge and an understanding of business principles that we need to grow Pueblo." He says, I haven't told anybody yet I'm not running except for you. You have 24 hours to let me know if you'd be interested, and I'll put all my support behind you. And if not, he says, I'll have to find somebody else that can add value that direction. And I thought about it, and it was like, what an opportunity to bring some business principles into that instead of political. Because the political stuff is a whole different ballgame. And political doesn't add any value. Where the business supply and demand and growth, and how to increase tax bases, how to create where people want to come to Pueblo, whether it's through tourism or businesses or companies or jobs. I mean, all of that stuff increases tax base. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. So I ran, and it was in 2001. And November was the election. If you remember what happened in 2001 in September 11th is when our whole world paradigm changed. So I was elected right a month after that. And so we came into a whole different feeling in the country, and things had changed. But it was geared towards the business aspect, and I learned a lot. I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't realize the bureaucrats. I didn't realize the power players. I didn't realize the hidden agendas. Didn't realize the media. All of these different powers of how they really play and come together on it there. But what I did learn was early on was who has more influence over a community? Is it the elected official, or is it the people that set the agenda that city council votes on? Who do you think has more influence over a community?
Wouldn't it be the people who, the second option, right?
Set the agenda. Yeah. Today, people think if you're elected in office, you've got the power. Well, but you only have the power in what they put in front of you, and I'm going to give it chocolate and vanilla. So you have two choices, chocolate or vanilla, and just say the bureaucratic agenda setters, whether it be the city manager or the mayor or the city attorneys or whatever, they're all administrative, executive branch, where council is legislative branch. And the legislative branch is elected by the people to represent the people, and the executive is there to be the agenda setter, to have the vision and have the knowledge and the experience of how to grow a community. So when you don't have the right mindset coming in, and you make it chocolate or vanilla, and you don't have the experience, you might be going down the wrong path. And if you realize you're in financial trouble, the thing is not to increase the tax base, because you don't have the skills to know how to become a magnet and work together and promote your community in a way that is a magnet. And you start having businesses closed down, and you start having crime out of control, and you have all these things that push that away. You end up losing tax base. And when you lose tax base, but your government is out of control, spending more money than it's ever spent in buying buildings you shouldn't be buying, in not having competitive bidding on projects, and all of a sudden you're $10 million in the hole. Your only alternative is to create more taxes, more fees, more reasons that people have to pay money that live here in higher taxes. There's so many things that now people hear every day. There's more cost. Mm-hmm. And because you haven't expanded that tax base, and yet the government's gone out of control, it pushes people away. Most businesses in Pueblo, Colorado are metal to metal. You know, you don't have the Springs and the Denver where you've got millions of people and all of that. You have a very limited amount, and when people can't make ends meet, property taxes are going up, insurance is going up. All of the elements are working against a prospering, healthy community. Here we are where we're at. Mm-hmm. So you really need to have a different concept, which I'm very clear on after understanding this, is the city council is the ones that vote on the agenda. So when you have chocolate and vanilla, back when I was on council, I figured out I threw in strawberry, and it drove the administration and the bureaucrats crazy, because it takes away from chocolate or vanilla, does not benefit the citizens. Strawberry benefits the citizens. So I would amend the agenda, or the ordinance or the resolution, and I would put the citizens in the center. What's the return on investment to the citizens with taxpayer dollars spent? Do you think that question's being asked now?
No.
No. You have buildings being bought. You have expenditures being taken place. You even have just recently an $8.8 million air conditioning. Now, you tell me how in this world we can have an air conditioning put on the police building that costs $8.8 million. Well, there was, in my opinion, no competitive bidding, even though they said there was on a national level. But that was the chocolate or the vanilla. The return on investment for the citizens was zero. Mm-hmm. You have a boathouse that was built that cost $18 million, 15, and then $3 million for the expansion of the Riverwalk. What's the return on investment to the taxpayers, since there was taxpayer money? The PBR building, where the new offices are. Tell me what kind of return on investment is there for the citizens that put tax dollars into the city coffers. Mm-hmm. What kind of return on investment did they get with them having offices that they really didn't need?
Yeah.
Zero. Actually, it was negative, because when a government buys a property, it goes off the tax rolls. So now people's property taxes are going to go higher, because all these buildings being bought by government, now they have to backload the tax loss of property tax by raising the taxes. So it's a broken system. Mm-hmm. It's not adding up to growth and prosperity. But I'm not faulting the people that are setting the agenda, but I will say they probably aren't listening to the right people. They don't have the understanding and the education of the one single focus is increasing the tax base, not overtaxing the small tax base we have that makes it smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Do you think this is not only on the local level, but on the state level, on the national level as well?
Absolutely.
And it's not just, there's a lot of things, the hidden agenda, the taxpayers, but going into the local aspect, because, I'm I'm a local resident in the community,
Right.
and I see the boathouse being built. I see the PBR building being
Used for offices.
well, so as far as media goes, I see the PBR building is going in the newspaper for being bought, but they never really give a reason for what they're going to be using it for. But in my personal opinion, and I'm glad you gave an in-depth explanation about that, because was there a need for the community, the citizens of our community, to use that boathouse? Sure, it may increase tourism, it may have some benefits, but as you were saying, if I'm paying for this as a taxpayer, what is the benefit of this? Why can't we put this money towards other useful projects or other solutions within the community? Why? That's my question.
Right. And you're asking the right question. You're asking the same question every citizen is asking. But the citizens was not in the scenario. Remember, chocolate or vanilla. And then when you have chocolate or vanilla, which is brought by the mayor, city attorney, somebody in administration for council to vote on, then you have another element, and that is staff reports. Who does the staff work for? Does the staff work for city council, or does it work for the administration, the executive branch?
Wouldn't they be working for the community of Pueblo in itself, right?
No, so the staff gets who writes the check? The administration writes the check. The executive branch writes the check. Now, city council has to approve the money, but it's all geared off a budget that's prepared for by the mayor and the finance director. So in that there should be a simple question. Every citizen should be asking, what return am I getting on this expenditure? Was it needed to have new offices? I mean, it's great. They got beautiful offices on the PBR building overlooking the Riverwalk, and it's not necessary. They had plenty of offices. I mean, actually, when you really look at the way things are going, there's going to have to be some massive cuts. Right now, they're about $10 million in the hole. Actually, it's going to be higher than that after this is all said. There's going to be less employees, not more employees. You know, there's going to be all of this. So, but that money that was spent was not what a leader would have done. A politician would have done that. So I'm going to give you another one of my awarenesses that's so critical. I'm constantly being asked to support this person or that person and all this, and I have one simple question I always ask them. Are you a leader or are you a politician? Because I will not support politicians. I don't care, a Democrat, Republican, independent politician. I want to support leaders, because leaders put people in the scenario. Leaders know that they're elected by the people for the people. They understand that they need to make sure the return on investment to the people that are putting their money in their hands and trust are taken care of. One thing with every politician that's out there, they have one thing in common. And I did some interviews up north there not too long ago, and I said every politician has the same thing in common. They all have a hidden agenda. I mean, wow. They all have a hidden agenda. They're trying to give the illusion they're there for the people, but is there any statement that's presented that council votes on that shows return on investment of taxpayer dollars? There should be, and that's up to the administration and the mayor's office to present that. But the citizens have to start standing up and saying, we need to demand to know where our taxpayer dollars are going. What kind of return did we get? If you're a business person and you invested $1 million and you were getting a negative return on investment, how long would you be in business? And I say that in a very simple thing. Yeah. Common sense says, no, you have to have a return on investment. And most of the expenditures that have been done have not had a return on investment. So, but the citizens have a part to play in, and another big one is the crime situation. The crime. Pueblo is a beautiful community, and I'm going to say this very proudly, that Pueblo has the greatest ingredients of any community I've ever seen. What we don't have is a recipe and a chef. We have the ingredients. So we have the possibility and the potential of having just amazing things happen here. But without a recipe and a chef, now you have what we have.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it going to take? It's going to take the citizens making demands. Right now, there's a lot of noise in city government. Would you agree?
I agree.
Everybody's calling everybody names. I don't know if you watch the meetings or see things, but there's just noise, 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 noise,
Mm-hmm.
noise. The awareness is, what is the responsibility of the agenda setter to have the agenda that serves the citizens that elected the people to do that. Now, council, they're given whatever information they're given. A lot of times they're not given any complete information, but they're given a staff report that says you have to do this. In the case of the 8.8 million air conditioning, it was a very simple thing. If we don't do this, there's going to be people getting sick. It's not safe. It's not healthy. It's not this. We've got to get an emergency situation to do it. Well, they got an emergency thing that council voted on, but the air conditioning wasn't put in for 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
If it was such an emergency, why did it take 8 months and at a cost of $8.8 million?
Okay.
So does that kind of help fill in some of that?
That fills in some gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're on city council, I've heard you mention that you guys had an emergency fund. Where does that emergency fund come from? Is that from the community? Is that from, where does that come from?
Well, I don't want you to use an emergency fund. It's a reserve.
Yes.
It's the safety net.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being drained very quickly. And once that is gone, now there's a whole new dynamic, because another awareness in government is, if you're city, county, state, you can't outspend your checkbook unless you have a big reserve that you take. But you have to have a balanced budget, so you have to take reserve whenever you spend more than you're bringing in. And that's been pretty consistent for the past years, that reserve account has gotten very small. Federal government, on the other hand, they can print money. So that's why you have a federal government that can spend all of this crazy amount of money, and they just keep printing more money. But that in itself is a tax, because when your dollar becomes worth less, is that not a tax on your dollar? If you have less money to spend, because more money got printed because of bad decisions of how money was spent on a federal level. But cities and states can't print money. So right now we've got a state that is out of control with its spending. And now they're fighting over the Tabor money and all of these different things to try to, it's kind of like the big monster of government is so big and so hungry, it's devouring everything around it, sucking it up, and we, the taxpayers, are the ones that are suffering for that. Mm-hmm. We get less services, less quality of life, more battling, more fighting, more waste, more fraud. All of these things are taking place, but citizens have a responsibility to demand leaders. We want leaders. We don't want politicians. We don't want somebody to tell us they're there for us and they're really not. And all you can do is just tell by their actions. And the actions are pretty clear.
That's a very good point. And I think people in Pueblo, if you're watching, the election's coming up in November. We want a leader. We don't want politicians. I agree with that statement. I want to see change, whatever positive change. I don't want politicians. I don't want people representing themselves in this way, and they're faking the funk.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, I believe in change, and I believe that it's time for change within our own community. of Pueblo, and that's just in my own opinion. But you brought up a lot of great points, and it makes me reflect and think, well, how can I also bring change with this new election coming up in Pueblo? What can I do to understand really if this person's a politician or a leader, or what their actual hidden agenda or agenda is?
Right.
So I think you, as a citizen, should be more involved with what's going on.
Well, and you are involved because you're doing these podcasts. So you have a microphone. Most people just have their mouth. So people with a mouth can talk to everybody they know, but most people don't. They're fighting and they're battling and they get caught up in all of this noise and they're missing what they should be focused on. So with a microphone, if you put things out there, like everybody needs to ask, are you a politician or are you a leader? And a politician is somebody that doesn't care about the voice of the people. And right now, when there's no return on investment for the citizens, the people aren't there. If we have a city that has crime that they tell us has gone down, but we don't feel like it's gone down, so the reality is we're being told by a politician that crime is down, but no, it's reported crime is down. So they've made it very difficult for people to report crime. They've made it where they change different things to give the illusion that things are better. But do you feel things are better?
No.
No, nobody does. But yet we're told that. So you know that comes out of a hidden agenda of a politician. A leader is going to step up and you're going to say, no, we're going to clean up the problems. And right now we have so many drug-related people coming in that are creating a lot of crime. And they're being shipped in from other communities. So they're being shipped in because if another community has a problem with drug dealers and the crime that's all affiliated with that, and the gang members and all of that affiliated that direction, guess what happens? Where can we take our people and get them out of our community into somewhere else? Well, Pueblo becomes a dumping ground. And we're also on I-25 and Highway 50, and there's a lot of drug activity and a lot of things going. But if you start holding accountable that level of crime, now all of a sudden 85% of your crime with victims that are people that what I call broken angels. They're people that don't have resources, but every day they're being victimized because they're easy targets. Now all of a sudden they're leaving Pueblo because there's accountability and they're going after them instead of the excuse that crime's going down. It's not. So, but the citizens need to start demanding that. People with microphones like yourself need to just make it simple, not noise, but awareness. Leaders care about people. Politicians care about making it look like they're serving and making excuses and saying, hey, it's just the way it is. So it's with that awareness, it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. I see where you're coming from. Going back into real estate, when you're looking for something to invest in that's going to bring value, do you think finding the right deal is one of the key ingredients to cooking the pie?
Right. So the ingredient is finding something you can add value to. And a lot of people that have bought real estate over the years, they make their money when they buy the property, not when they sell it. And normally those properties need to have somebody come in and fix it up. And so when you look at the opportunities in Pueblo over the years, I owned a lot of real estate. I don't now. You know, I've simplified my life, but it has been where Pueblo back in the day, it was a good win-win situation. It was growing and it had jobs and it had, you know, like when the mill, when it was making steel, generated about 10 to 12,000 employees. Now they're down to about 1,200. And they're getting ready to open up the new long rail plant, and you're aware of that. And the long rail plant cost about $1 billion to build, and I'm very thankful it came here, because otherwise the mill would probably have shut down. Now they've got $1 billion investment. They're going to make it work. But in that, they're going to not have the old rail mill operating, because they're going to take the new long rail and they can cut down the size of the rail that they need, as well as making the long rail that is what's going to make the high-speed rail work, because it has less rivets.
Mm-hmm.
The less rivets, the faster the train can go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be one of two, I think maybe two plants in the whole North America making long rail. So we've got this, but there's not going to be a lot of jobs. It's going to be more high tech. But we need to have energy, affordable energy. And the affordable energy, we have all these battles of saying, oh, we want solar. We've got more solar parks than probably anybody of a community our size. But it doesn't generate baseline energy, and it's supplementary energy that helps soften the blow, but it's also extremely costly. So people need to be asking the questions: what is the best sort of energy that we should have that will make us a magnet of drawing in businesses and people moving here, instead of battling and fighting over the green energy versus the coal. The coal is pretty much gone. And that also was somewhat of a mistake. The county generated about $34 million a year in property tax with the coal Comanche plant. So they're continuing to pay the property tax for a period of time, and then it goes away. And it's just like when the city bought the PBR building. Once that tax dollar is gone, who's going to backfill $34 million in property tax? In a community the size of Pueblo, that's not growing. It's going to have the cost of government still going to be there. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to raise the taxes, further push more people out. But getting back to your question about the real estate, right now it's a very unique real estate market. There's a lot of moving pieces, but you have to fix the baselines of making where people want to come to Pueblo. You have to have the development costs to be affordable. Mm-hmm. Right now, development cost is out of control. It's about 40% more expensive than it was 15 years ago. So now houses, cost of materials have gone up. Now you have development costs more. Now you have more taxes. You have permit fees that have gone up higher. Everything just keeps adding on to everything. I remember back in the day where I'd put a hot water tank in for $350. Now they're $2,000 to $3,000. So you take that on every little element of the cost of it there. How do you create the affordability when all of these dynamics are changing? It's got to be people coming in with good paying jobs. So that needs to be where everybody's demanding, besides return on investment to taxpayers, is let's become a magnet, making this community grow, because we have the ingredients. We just need to get the right pieces coming together, including the energy that will generate companies wanting to come in.
Mm-hmm. Is that why you stuck with commercial instead of residential?
I still do residential.
Okay.
Yeah, but commercial is takes a different set of mindset. And it takes a different skill level, because you are dealing with a lot of the bureaucratic stuff. You're dealing with government where residential you're not. People want to buy a house. You don't have government approvals and permits and paperwork and red tape with that. But I'm good at doing that. Because I understand, having been in council for 8 years, I understand where the roadblocks are in that, and I can call it out like we did on the Murphys. Somebody that didn't have that experience wouldn't have been able to call it out, and that wouldn't have worked. Mm-hmm. But with the residential, what makes residential valuable is people moving in. And if you don't have people moving in, you can drop prices all you want, but you still don't have people coming in mm-hmm. that you need to fuel the economy there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I always think about this, purpose over profit, but what what you said is find something that's going to bring value, and then
The money
the
follows.
money follows. So for something on that grand of a scale, that makes a lot of sense. That's very informative. And I don't think a lot of people understand that when they get into real estate, or they understand the concept of how you're going to make money in general, because you got to find something that's going to bring value and purpose to someone, and then profit will come. A lot of people get into entrepreneurship because they want to make a quick buck or they want to make money, but they don't have the value mindset behind it. So it's very informative and educational that you brought that to my attention, because I was uninformed about a lot of these different points that you pointed out and explained on. But going further into, when you find something that has value, how would you go about finding the source to fund it? How does that come into play, and how do you figure out those challenges?
Well, the money picture is challenging. I'll just give you an example of what happened when COVID hit, or when the real estate market crashed in 2008, 2009, and 2010. One of the concepts was the money was so cheap. Now, I'm going to give you another awareness that when people buy a home, they don't care what the price is, they care what their payment is.
Mm-hmm.
So when people can buy a house for $1,000 because the interest rate is 2.5%, what's the real value of that house? Because now you pay more for the house, but your payment is $1,200. So what happens when the interest rates go up? And that value, they paid this for the house. Now there's a little bit of an imbalance situation in there. That's why you have another reason why people that have the 2.5 to 3.5% loans are locked into it, because they're not going to go out and buy another house and pay 6%.
Mm-hmm.
And if in Denver especially, the average price of a home there is $800,000, and which didn't bother them when they had 2.5 to 3%. Now you add make $1 million house, but now you're paying 6%. So now your payment's gone up this much. Now your taxes have gone up this much. Now your insurance has gone up this much. And it takes the buying pool, shrinks it down, because you have to qualify based off of income.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have all of this other stuff. So there's another piece of really understanding that when you want to add value, you really want to counsel people of understanding what the truth and the dynamics are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not simply just, hey, if you like it, let's write it up. And, it takes a more thoughtful realtor that really gets into a deeper understanding of what I just shared.
You're looking at numbers. You're looking at how the numbers are going to affect the consumer and the buyer and the economy in general.
Right. And again, it's something that it takes that extra effort. But again, when you add value, now you're bringing out all of these different things. It's not just simply, a lot of people when they get in real estate, they think, wow, this is cool. I go out and I show a house and I write a contract and I make $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 or $10,000 or $15,000. It doesn't work that way. You really need to take time with your client and really explain all of these different dynamics, and when it comes to the inspections, when it comes to what's happening with the property insurance. Property insurance is one of the next dominoes that's going to have a major impact. With all of the storms that are hitting, a lot of different things that are taking place that is making the cost of a storm, making a cost well, I'll give you another example. What does insurance companies invest in with all of the profits that they make? So these big, huge insurance companies, they've got hundreds and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. Where do they put that money to get a rate of return? In big real estate. Big shopping centers, office buildings. Down in Texas, they've got tons of those. Now there's another dynamic with insurance companies, is a lot of those buildings are empty. Big office buildings. now after COVID, most people work from home. Did that not change the big office building dynamic?
Mm-hmm.
You know, now the property tax on the big commercial real estate has gone through the roof because government needs the money. So now the bigger the property, the higher the increase goes. And just talk to people here locally that have commercial properties. Their property tax was $14,000 and now it's $32,000. How many people do you know that can take just that one section, take a hit that big?
A lot of people would take a hit that big.
Well, they're taking the hit and now they're closing up and boarding up windows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're losing tax base. You know, so all of those pieces really need to be thought through more than just, hey, real estate's a good investment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just really understanding the future and what to do. But what really makes a difference is a healthy community focuses on getting rid of the crime, not making excuses, doing the right thing, and having energy costs be the energy that truly attracts companies coming in for jobs, and then bringing in these companies. And only then will it be a strong, prospering community. And there's a lot of strong, prospering communities out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's a lot of them that are suffering. And then there's even Pueblo has kind of reached a point that has got national recognition for being kind of the worst in a lot of areas.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just crack it up to a politician was involved, not a leader.
I think that's a fair statement. I think Pueblo has a lot of potential.
Unlimited.
Untapped, unlimited potential. A lot of it has to do with people not taking action on themselves. And a lot of it is, political based. But I think there's a lot of good parts about Pueblo. And we can, as a community, as people who love this town, we can make it better. I hear stories all the time about people growing up in Pueblo, and they always express how the community was just there for them. And you don't get that in a lot of places.
Right.
You don't get that in Colorado. So in Colorado, like you were saying, yes, other places can have that community, but if we're boiling it down to the melting pot, in Colorado, we have a special spot for potential, and people either look the other way or they're not taking a bet on themselves, and or it comes down to the political agenda. And I think, ideally in a perfect world, all of those should change, but it just takes that initial step and that initial action. And a lot of people are too scared to speak up, come in front of a microphone, or even just bet on themselves. But I agree, Pueblo has unlimited potential.
Well, because my statement earlier was we have the greatest ingredients of any community out there. Look at the water we have. We have enough water for a population of 400,000 people. We have I-25 and Highway 50. We have the university. We've got the community college. We've got the golf courses. We've got the weather. I mean, I could go on for 3 days about all the great things that we have. But we need a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to just make it real clear right now because I'm asked every day if I'm going to run for mayor again, and the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer going to run for office because I am old,
Mm-hmm.
and my kids, I love them dearly, and my daughter's conversation is, Dad, it's not your responsibility to fix the town. But I have a responsibility for Pueblo to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of that. It's just bringing this awareness. So we just need to have the leaders, but I'm not ever going to be in that situation again
Mm-hmm.
of running for office. But it is something that the citizens right now have all the power. But they have to have the awareness. They have to make note of what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, and don't take the excuses. Mm-hmm. Like, well, every community's overspending their budgets. No, or every community has crime. Look at Castle Rock and look at Fort Collins. Look at their crime. They don't have the crime problem we have here, but yet they have the same governor. they have the same state legislation that we seem to be blaming for all of our problems. No, we have. If you had a leader that said, "This is what we're going to do," you can do it. But if you don't have the ability to do it, you have no choice but to blame it on something else.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's going to be a new sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to see with the sheriff, the race coming now, who's going to stand up and say, I'm going to take on the crime. I'm going to really incorporate that, because the city is making the excuses about crime. But now what happens if the county comes in and does a joint effort with the city in making that a focus? What do you think is going to happen with people now? They'll say, hey, Pueblo's a great, safe, clean community to come to. That is what's going to make the difference. Then our ingredients matter. Mm-hmm. And until that happens, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah. I mean...
But I'd rather be here than anywhere.
I think of it... Someone told me this, no problems, only solutions. And like we have pounded on, you're going to have challenges. You need to face them to grow. So there's a lot to the pie to be able to cook it. But I have a question, and, yourself being involved within the community, being involved with different ventures, finding the right people to be able to fund a Murphy's.
Well, they pay cash.
Oh, that's even
right.
Brings me with more questions. But how would you encourage, number one, someone to start making those big connections, and how important do you think it is to establish those kind of connections?
Well, connections will be connected when people see you as somebody that adds value. If you don't add value, you're blowing in the wind. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So how do you add value? It's now you taking yourself, which I'm going to talk a little bit about masterpiece. Mm-hmm. If I were to say, is a masterpiece a noun or a verb?
A noun?
Yeah, masterpiece. Is it a noun or a verb?
Person, place, or thing. A verb, right?
Well, most people would look at a masterpiece like the Mona Lisa.
Yes.
Okay, and that's a noun.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm saying a masterpiece is something different.
Okay.
A masterpiece is Da Vinci. He's the creator of the Mona Lisa. Mm-hmm. So the Mona Lisa is a showpiece, which is a noun. But Da Vinci was the creator, and that's a verb. When you're the creator, now you become living and active and proactive, not reactive, and all of these different skill sets. And so it's now on you. So you can't blame people when things don't go well. You can't sit there and focus on fear and ego, because that's low frequency, and you don't achieve things of adding value unless you're high frequency. And you need to ask questions. You need to be always educating yourself, because I shared a lot of stuff that you probably had never even thought of before. Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't happen overnight. That was years of asking the questions and trying to understand what's really going on. Mm-hmm. And so then people want to talk to you when they know that you get something of value. Then you can start having the influence of with people running for office. I've got 3 right now in very important races, and that I consider leaders. Okay, so I will work with them, and in that leadership, just take the governor's race. Who do you think I support for governor?
The producer of Rocky Mountain Voice.
Well, yeah, hiding and all, I supported her. But for this election coming up, who do you think I support?
Randy, I'm not too educated on the current political race.
Okay, so I'll just kind of give you a question. Do you think Colorado is in chaos?
I think Colorado's in chaos.
Right. Colorado is not the Colorado that I grew up in, because not that anything's changed except politics. Mm-hmm. So now it's going to be Victor Marks running against Phil Weiser, and then Lopez is in the race as well. There's one simple thing. What will change Colorado that's in chaos is only a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And Victor Marks is the leader. Okay, he's not a politician. He has the ability, and he will tell you he doesn't have the experience in government.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that. But guess what he told me? He said, I will get the right people that have the ability to turn Colorado around. I will make sure I bring in the right people and not the bureaucratic people that are there now. And that's what it's going to take. But he has to have the strength to make the changes and not sit there and check the box or make excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know once you get in office, it's easy to make excuses and say it's not my fault?
Mm-hmm.
A leader is going to say, no, I have this one opportunity to turn it around. Jeff Hurd is a leader. And then you've got Mark Baisley. He's running against Hickenlooper. He called me, 3 weeks ago, and wanted me to work with him. And I asked him on the phone. I said, are you a leader or are you a politician? And he says, I am a public servant. And I said, so you care about people? He says, absolutely. I said, that's enough for me to go ahead and meet you, but you're going to have to come to Pueblo. And he did. He met me over at the country club, spent an hour and a half with him there. And he, how can I say this? He gets it. So all three of those passed the smelt test with me of being a leader because they care about what the voice of the people is. Do you happen to have duct tape here?
Perhaps.
If you can find duct tape, I will show you something I showed him.
Okay.
And it was when you get elected, 95% of the people that run for office and get elected have one thing in common. They want to make a difference. They want to serve people. They want to represent and have value come to the people that had trust in them to elect them. But what people don't understand is when you get elected, you become an asset to hidden agendas.
Mm-hmm.
You become an asset to special interest. You become an asset to people that want to control, to keep things the same, because they will never stand up and be in office.
Mm-hmm.
They want to control the people that are in office. So they have to have a higher awareness level themselves. And the people running for office, that I truly am a leader. So I use this exercise of saying when you come in, you get elected, and I put duct tape around my hand to represent the binds that come on automatically, that people that run for office don't realize what's going to happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't cooperate, well, just like with party politics, if you have a party, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, or the Independent Party, do you think the party should dictate what happens, or do you think the people should dictate what happens?
In a perfect world, the people should dictate what happens.
Okay, so that's just another level. So I like the common sense. I like the conservative approach. I like all of that. But people say, well, are you a Republican? I said, I believe I'm common sense conservative. And common sense conservative is what needs to move things forward versus having where out of control spending or the hidden agendas take place and inside deals and all of that kind of stuff. So, but I still want the voice of the people to be what influences the people that get in office. Well, only the person in office can make that happen by being a leader, standing up and saying, I will stand for the people. I will make sure there is that return of investment. I will make sure the people are protected, that we pass laws that protect innocent citizens from predators and crime. Those things are simple, but they can't do it if they're a politician under the political party or the hidden agenda rule.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you have time if Derek can find some duct tape, I can show you something that I think is pretty powerful
Okay.
on that. But go ahead with I do talk too much.
No, you're okay. It's better as a podcast host to ask questions and let the guest answer them. And it's okay if the guest is a talker. I appreciate that. The viewer appreciates that because it's a lot for me doing this. I'm still learning and growing on how to navigate a podcast and the conversation. But for someone as yourself who has this fountain of knowledge that I know even just a piece of a fraction about, it's valuable to just sit, listen, and digest it. So I really appreciate you giving different takes and your own experiences on local politics, state politics, but also entrepreneurship, life experiences, and how you view comfort and growth, because I think that's valuable. And my mission, my goal is to provide value for anyone around the world watching who feels, to put it this way, comfortable, and they want to take a risk on themselves, but they don't know where to start. So to have guests on here who have been through the school of hard knocks, who can say it out how it um, is wonderful. Because as myself getting into entrepreneurship, I have so many questions.
Well, and I get that, and I appreciate it, and that's why I agreed to do the show, because I had some questions for you before I agreed to come on, and because I, just like with only supporting leaders, I only want to support people with a microphone that is interested in educating and creating higher awareness for people. I don't need to be part of noise. Does that make sense? And that is something that I think you're going to see with the new paradigm shift, that more and more people are going to say, is that noise or is this awareness? And I want nothing to do with the noise. The noise is keeping me bound and locked down of my potential. With awareness and getting back to the masterpiece, if you are a masterpiece, that you're a verb. Now you have to ask yourself every day, what do I need to have incorporated into me to make me a better masterpiece? And how can I serve people being that masterpiece? And what skill sets do I want? What mindset do I want? You get to choose your mindset every day. So I've done some things before with, in fact, I have a corporation called The Grass is Greener on the Inside. And people don't understand how simple that concept is. Everybody thinks the grass is greener on the other side. If I only had this, it would be better. Well, fear and ego are the two biggest emotions that drive people's decisions. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that.
So when you look at fear and ego, by design, it allows other people to have control over your life. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, again, awareness. No noise, just awareness. So when you look at not having fear and not having ego, so ego is, I don't care if people like me or not. In fact, I love when people have their ability to be free to think whatever they want. But my life is, I know who I am, and I know what's in my heart, and I know how much I want things to open up for people where they become the best version of themselves, of the life they want to live, not being controlled by others. So the grass is greener on the inside. Where the grass is greener on the other side is fear and ego, to let other people have control. So what makes the grass greener on the inside is awareness. So awareness then is, how do you get awareness? You ask powerful questions. You don't get into the norm questions daily, but you get into deep questions. And the deeper the question and you find the answer, now nobody can take that knowledge away from you. I mean, now you know about spit, right?
Very true. Not everybody is ready to have those conversations as well. I'm a very deep question seeker,
Uh-huh.
and not just with like-minded people, but people in general. I ask the deep questions. I ask the deep questions about how you're feeling emotionally, what you're thinking as far as, um, a 9 to 5 or entrepreneurship. I like to ask very deep questions that make you really think, and I've experienced that not everybody is ready to have that conversation, and I think with themselves, because I'm ready to have that conversation with anybody,
Mm-hmm.
just because I feel I'm mature enough and I'm ready in life to be able to have these conversations, reflect, look myself in the mirror, but also kind of gauge where people are at within their own life, because you can tell a lot by someone by the questions you ask and the answers they provide back to
Right.
you. And that can tell you if you want to be able to, you know, hang around this person, if you want to put energy into this type of relationship, or if it's not going to bring any value or meaning to you. You'll know that by the conversation you have with them. So I think it's important to have deep conversations and don't be stuck in this comfortable, stagnant lifestyle where we're just asking, oh, how's your day? Well, how was work? It's baby steps, you get to a more deeper interaction with little steps like that. But long story short, I'm a big fan of deep conversation.
Well, you heard me ask you some questions.
Mm-hmm.
And with those questions, you wouldn't have thought about it without me asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
So you can ask yourself questions or somebody can ask you questions. So once you get that question, then it opens up a whole new chapter or a whole new journey of really looking deeper and then deeper and then deeper and then deeper and then coming up with simple principles.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the strawberry. The strawberry is a principle. Chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. Before it was just chocolate or vanilla, and the citizens are not represented. Strawberry is with that awareness to make sure if you're a leader, now you can create strawberry, and you're no longer frustrated with if I vote this way or if I vote that way. You've got the power as an elected official to amend and change what's presented by the agenda setters.
Mm-hmm.
So now you become an agenda setter for the people. And simple, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. If you don't know that spit will save your life in an avalanche, you don't have it. And people died if they would have known spit, they would be alive today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all of that. That's the real value of the awareness. The masterpiece being a verb in yourself. I mean, your mind operates at an unlimited basis. What feeds how motivated you are to grow your mind versus being a victim or being comfortable?
Mm-hmm. Questions.
And again, 20 or 30 new awarenesses a day. Is that outrageous? No. So what? You only get 10.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to set that out there, and all of a sudden you're on this journey of like, wow, I had no idea in the world that we live in how unlimited the possibilities are. We talked about expectations. Don't have expectations. Don't say you have a problem. Say I have a challenge. If you say I have a problem, automatically your frequency drops. If you say I have a challenge, automatically your frequency increases. Because now you've got a challenge, you've got something to look into and figure out, instead of like, oh my God, geez, I don't know if I can handle this, major problems. And any problem is really a challenge if you have that awareness.
And that's a good way to look at it. Randy, thank you so much for coming on to the All In Show. You dropped a lot of great gems, and I really appreciate you diving into different topics into a really formal and educated answer, because I was uneducated and I didn't know a thing or two about a lot of things you talked about, but it creates more questions that I have for you. So, anybody watching out there, if you want to see a part 2 with me and Randy Thurston here, you let me know down in the comments below. But I just want to say thank you, Randy, for coming on to the show. It's been a pleasure, and I gained a lot from this conversation.
Well, and equally I did as well. And it's good knowing that with you with your microphone that you really care about bringing people to a higher level. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget to like this video. Comment down below if you want a Randy Thurston part 2. Subscribe and show some love. We're trying to change the world. I hope this helps someone out there watching, the one I'm pointing to the camera, because this is going to impact so many lives, and I believe that with my whole heart. So I hope this change at least one person out there. But until next time, I'll see you next week.